We left off our studies last week looking at a period of judgment and consequences for the nations of Israel and Judah. You remember from our study that the people had forgotten God, and the leaders had given up on the covenant and expressions of the covenant found in worship and Torah and circumcision and Passover and these important traditions. The prophets had warned them, but judgment does finally come. In 722 BC, Israel is destroyed by the Assyrians. And then in 587 BC, the Babylonians surround Jerusalem, eventually sack the city, and completely destroy the temple. They take all of the leading citizenry, including the nobles and the priests and those that aren't slaughtered, into captivity back to Babylon. The biblical writer includes one especially graphic detail of the last king of Judah, Zedekiah, who has his children slaughtered in front of him and then has his eyes gouged out, so that's the last thing that he can see. And then he's led away into captivity in Babylon. A horrible, horrible time in the history of our people, in the history of Judah, in the history of the Old Testament. As the people are led back into captivity in Babylon, which incidentally is the same, approximately the same geographic dimensions as the modern nation of Iraq, the people are in absolute crisis. And this creates a theological emergency, a theological crisis for them as well. Where is God in all this? Are the gods of the Babylonians stronger than our gods? Well, the prophets said that all of this was the judgment of Yahweh. The people begin to reflect and are looking for faith and begin to come back to God during this time. And it's we see the amazing work of the theologians of Judah during this time, and the faithfulness of the remnant of Judah as the people begin to gather together and continue to worship. It's during this period of time that they piece together some of their writings and their histories and begin forming what we call today the Old Testament. It's also during this period of time that, since the priests have been slaughtered and there's no more temple to offer the sacrifices, the people worship in a different way. They gather together in homes, or they gather out on the riverbank to read Torah and to encourage one another in something that was called synagogue worship, much like we have today. It's during this period of history that the people of Israel, the Hebrew people, are also begin being called the Jews because they're from Judah. During this 40-year period, the people try to hang on, and they remember what life was like back in the days of the covenant and for their ancestors, and they live really on a hope and on a dream that someday they can get back there. God does send a deliverer. This time the deliverer is not a Jew or an Israelite, but the deliverer is Cyrus, the king of Persia. Cyrus is the only foreign king in the Bible ever to be referred to as the Lord's anointed. But in 539 BC, the Persians defeat the Babylonians. And in 538 BC, Cyrus, king of Persia, issues an edict allowing the people of Judah to go home and begin rebuilding their city, begin rebuilding their temple, and rebuilding their nation. The exiles begin to go back in waves. Not everyone leaves, of course, but many do. Many return back to Judah, some of them simply on faith and promise that they could begin again. They rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and then most scholars agree that by the year 515 BC, the temple in Jerusalem has been rebuilt, and the sacrificial cultus has been reinstituted with the priests. God has been faithful. Even during a time of national calamity, the people have now been restored. When they get back to Judah, they begin to institute a number of reforms and at least for a period of time, become very serious about keeping their covenant with God and remaining faithful in their religious and moral duties as God's people. I'm so grateful that even in the worst times of our lives, we can count on our God, who has the power and the ability and the desire to restore us.